What is up, everybody? I'm driving to work, so I thought I'd do a little record. So today I'm going to talk about preparing for an interview. I'm going to talk about the whole application personal statement in another video. I'm going to try to keep my videos pretty short and sweet because I didn't like sitting through watching other optometry videos, so I'm sure you guys don't. So you guys just want to get right to the point. So interviews, preparing for them. So interviews are scary, but if you get one, consider yourself in a great place. I got an interview to the Ohio State University, I'll just call it OSU, and also Nova in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then Midwestern College of Optometry, which is in Chicago. I started preparing for interviews long before I got one. As soon as I sent in my application, and it was just kind of like, I'm done with it, I don't need to work on personal statements, I don't have to perfect my application anymore, then you can start preparing for interviews. Because if your application isn't perfect, or as perfect as you can make it, then you won't get an interview. My first interview was the end of July, and I submitted my application, I think it was July 3rd, and then end of July I already got an interview. So step 1, find all and any interview questions. Step 2, copy and paste those questions into a Word document. Step 3, type out the answers to those questions in paragraph style and figure out what you want to say. When you answer a question, you want to story tell. You want to identify the problem, say how you fixed it, and then say what you learned from it going forward. So step 4, put those paragraphs into bullet points. Step 5, make those questions and bullet point key points into flashcards, like physical flashcards, not Anki, like flashcards. What I did was I looked up common interview questions, like tell me about yourself, that kind of thing. I Googled any single kind of question. And make sure when you Google questions, you're looking at specifically for grad schools. You don't want to do a job interview type thing. You don't want to get those questions because a lot of them are asking specifically about the job, if you know what I mean. So what I did was I wrote all those questions down in a Google document, I'll say. It's just a Word document. So I typed them all out, and then I just would type out what I wanted to say. So it was paragraphs of material. And then after I had what I wanted to say, I didn't memorize it word for word because these answers, it's not memorization. I'm telling it from my story. It's my own personal stories kind of thing. So it's no memorization is needed. I already know it. So after I wrote out those paragraphs, I formatted those paragraphs into bullet points to make sure that when I was going over these questions and then look at what I wanted to say, at the bullet points, I could just kind of glance down and see okay, did I hit those key points and did I expand on those key points that I wanted to. Step 5, make those questions and bullet point key points into flashcards, physical flashcards. That way, what I did is I would go on walks with a friend or my boyfriend, and I'd give them the stack of flashcards and I'd have them read question, and then I would just start answering. And then I would flip over the card to make sure I hit those bullet points. But at the point where I was going on walks with my friends and my boyfriend, at that point I already knew the answers. I just wanted to practice being fluent with them and not saying or anything like that, or have any pauses to think about, oh, I missed that bullet point. Those flashcards were super helpful to me because then you can also shuffle the order, so then you don't know the order that you're going to be asked a question. I had about 40 interview questions, so some of them were kind of repeats. It was just kind of the way they phrased it, because I didn't want them to ask me a question tell me about a time things didn't go as planned. And I didn't want to be not prepared for that question, but I was prepared for a time where I stepped up as a leader, because depending on your story, you can file that story you're going to share under both those questions. After I had all those questions sorted out, I would practice, go on walks, and just practice being fluent in them. I even had a how are you card, because that's the first thing it's going to be very nice, oh my gosh, how are you? And so I would have a how are you flashcard just to be instead of saying like, I'm good or something, you'll be like, I'm excited to be here or something. So my boyfriend would make fun of me because he would just be like, I'm excited to be here. Because I had that on a flashcard. It looked super silly on the outside looking in, but it was helpful. So that was how I prepared for my interview questions. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I think I nailed my interview. I was so prepared. It was nerve-wracking being there, but by practicing as much as I did, it was muscle memory at that point. So when you get nervous, that cortisol in your brain, you forget, you get stressed out. But once you practice to a certain point, you have something to fall back on, which is that muscle memory of just telling that story instead of like pausing. As prepared as I was, they did ask me a question that I replied, that's a great question. I'll have to think about that for a moment. And then I had to sort through my story inventory and decide what story am I going to answer with. A lot of the questions I was asked, and even in general, even with my inventory of questions, a lot of the stories I pulled from were when I was still dancing. So it was like my freshman, sophomore year in college when I was a dance minor, still performing, as well as when I told a story from high school. It tells them more about myself, that I'm a dancer, and I was able to really show that I was a leader instead of just saying I led my dance team kind of thing. So definitely you want to story tell. I don't want to give any of my stories. Maybe I will in another video, but I just don't want someone to like steal my stories or something. So I just got to work. So I'll continue in the second half of the video. Oh, I'm gonna straighten out my parking. So I am gonna be at work, so when you see me, it's probably gonna be a little darker out. And I will talk more about the interview and the Zoom interview. Unlike normal years, it was over Zoom, and it's probably gonna be the same for you guys for the next couple years. So I'll give my tips and tricks for that I came up with all by myself, and I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah.